Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Take it away.
Okay, Dr. Mark Gallagher is our chairman of the board of directors, and he is a member of the first family that was diagnosed with Snyder-Robinson, and he has been involved with the Snyder-Robinson Foundation since our first conference that we held in 2015, and he's been actively involved, and he's taken a leadership role, and he has brought the Snyder-Robinson Foundation's level of professionalism and its level of effort and its organization to a new level that we have not seen before. And we've accomplished a great deal during this last year under his leadership. And I will turn it over to Mark.
Yeah, I'll add on top of that. So Mark has a very important history in the U.S. military, and just a very important individual in a number of ways outside of the foundation. So let's go ahead and welcome Mark Gallagher to the floor.
So thank you very much, and welcome to our Snyder-Robinson virtual gala, and I'm glad everyone's able to come to this. So the introduction there was by Michael, and Michael Raymond he actually founded this Snyder-Robinson Foundation, and he was the chairman of the board. We reorganized in this last year where we created a separate executive council, and so Michael's now the executive director, and then we created a separate board with our outside people, and I became chairman of the board on that. And all of us or for the most part, particularly those who were first involved, all have Snyder-Robinson children or connections. So I have 4 brothers who have Snyder-Robinson. My sister's also a carrier, and so I have a nephew and also a grandniece that are affected by Snyder-Robinson syndrome. What I was going to do in about 10 or 15 minutes here is give a summary of what we've done in the 5 years, and Michael can probably fill in on some of that because he's been much closer to it than I am, and then talk about how we're reorganizing, what our current initiatives are, and how people can participate and help out. Okay? So over the 5 years, basically when they got diagnostic testing available, then people started being able to connect, and so they could do genetic testing, and we're connecting people around the world now, at least it's in the United States and Europe. They were connecting, and the 6 families formed together to form this foundation soon from when they connected from the diagnostic testing, and they formed that foundation. That was under the leadership of Michael Raymond. From that, when that was 2014, so it's just been 5 years, and a huge amount of progress in there. One of the main fundraisers we've done is Penn State runs an annual $1 million bike ride where they let people with rare diseases come in the teams, and they would match funds for that. So we currently are getting, we raised $30,000. They will match up to $30,000 for that. That has been one of our main sources for getting research grants. So each year we've been given 2 or 3 research grants out to different universities to move along and to do that. And to me, that if you look at where the research is in, from Snyder-Robinson doing it, they named it from Snyder-Robinson, but they just much said that this was a X-linked chromosome disease. The research has really gotten into the mechanism of how the individuals with Snyder-Robinson syndrome, how they process proteins, and the way they process them isn't the normal way, and it leads to toxins. And that has helped us to say maybe attacking those toxins can give us not a cure, but a treatment for Snyder-Robinson. So that's my layman's interpretation. Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think that's a good start. I think when we first started, what we found was that Snyder-Robinson syndrome is caused by a mutation of the gene. It's called the SMS gene. And that gene produces an enzyme that causes a reaction in the cells, all the cells in the body, and it converts one polyamine called spermidine into another called spermine. And when that enzyme isn't present in sufficient quantity, or if it's not working properly, the spermidine builds up in the cells and it breaks down, as Mark said, into toxins. So you have too much spermidine, and that breaks down with toxic effects, and you have a lack of spermine. So when we started the foundation, the thought was if we could either replace the enzyme or if we could replace the product of the enzyme, then we could hopefully regulate the chemistry in the cell so it didn't have the effects that it does. Snyder-Robinson affects all systems in the body, but it especially affects the nervous system and bones. So you see seizure disorders, intellectual disability. You have hypotonia as a result because of the neuromuscular junction, and you have osteoporosis. And so initially what we thought was, let's just replace that enzyme. And when we started, Dr. Neil Burkle at NIH actually offered to assist us if we started the foundation, and he gave an initial pilot grant from the NIH to the University of Miami, where Dr. Grace Dye and Chong Lee and the students there, under Dr. Zai's guidance, basically built a model in a fruit fly of what Snyder-Robinson looked like, and they helped us to understand some of the disease mechanisms and some possible therapeutic targets. From there, we held a conference in 2015, and we had attending from Greenwood, we had Dr. Charles Schwartz and Dr. Roger Stevenson, and Dr. Schwartz, who is now he's the chair of our medical advisory board, along with his colleague Tony Tagg from the University of Pennsylvania. They discovered the gene that was responsible for SMS. And Neil Burkle and Grace and Dr. Alexoff from Clemson, all of these different folks came in support of what we were trying to do. And we launched a natural history study, which is basically you gather up all the medical records from Snyder-Robinson patients and you feed them into a database in a very detailed manner so that you can provide that information to researchers and clinicians. So we've done that. Mary Jo Cutler, who's now also on our board, is the principal clinician. She is a pediatrician who treated Snyder-Robinson patients for 20 years. And the mother of those patients, who is on our medical advisory board, is running our natural history study. That's Terry Kerner. What we've learned through that natural history study is amazing. We've learned a whole lot more about the disease than we knew about it previously, and we've identified therapeutic targets, and we've been able to share this information with researchers so that now that they've become interested in helping us. There's a group of scientists that specialize in this pathway called the polyamines. They call themselves the polyamigos. And they got together in 2017 and had a session on SRS. And out of that, we're now looking at a couple different compounds that we hope to turn into drugs to treat our kids. So I don't want to bore you all with the science too much, but the research grants that we've been able to fund and the work that we've been able to do through the natural history study and the engagement of our patient community and the help of these amazing researchers and clinicians has allowed us to really get a lot further than I would have ever thought possible with such a small population in a relatively short period of time. So sorry, Mark, it took longer than I expected.
So that was very good, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, that was fantastic. So I want to ask a couple of questions of both of you, and also take a moment to point out to the audience, this no one's muted. And this is a live recording where you all are welcome to ask questions, as I'm about to do, of Mark, who is the current president of Snyder-Robinson Foundation, and then Michael, who just finished speaking, who is the former president. So a couple questions I have. One of the things that I've become aware of, working with both of you and with the families, is the range of symptoms. Wow, it is striking. Where the reading that I've done online, it doesn't really speak to that so much. It talks about the symptoms in general terms, but it doesn't talk about how different it can be from patient to patient. Could either of you sort of talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The way that this was described to me shortly after Connor's diagnosis was that the enzyme that the SMS gene produces, it's called spermine synthase, and it's in the shape of a dimer. That means it's in the shape of something that looks like a pair of salad tongs. And depending on where the mutation takes place on the SMS gene, you can have some function or no function going on with spermine synthase. So if the mutation hits the points of the salad tongs where they come together, where that rivet holds the two halves together, then they don't work at all. But if the mutation is on another part of the gene, such that the salad tongs are broken or bent, but they're still partially functioning, you can have partial function, right? And so you see a very broad range of presentation with the disease. We have some members of Mark's family who've been very high-functioning adults who can drive cars and hold down jobs, regular jobs, and do very, very well. And we've had other kids who have died in infancy, and we've seen pretty much everything in between. The more widely this whole exome sequencing becomes available, the more cases of Snyder-Robinson that we're able to investigate, the more information we have about the nature of the disease and the range of that presentation. We've also found that there are a number of other systems that are impacted by the disease that we weren't really aware of previously. And things like, gastrointestinal problems and sensitivity to light, and a number of other systems that we didn't know previously, hearing loss, that we didn't know that these other systems were impacted. But we're learning through the natural history study so much more than we knew when my son was first diagnosed in 2013.
This is Mark, if I can add on to that. So Michael has repeatedly pointed to the natural history study. We currently have 22 medical cases in there, and the more we can add, the more they are. Now, typically this is a lot because they ask for all the medical history on the Snyder-Robinson syndrome individual, which usually they have lots of medical history, but it's very valuable to the researchers to be able to see. So some of the things that we see is they have very weak bones. They can't process calcium well, so their bones are weak. And it doesn't matter how many calcium tablets they take, they still have weak bones. So there's lots of broken bones. My brothers have typically had seizures, although they seem to have grown out of those a bit. The hearing loss. My brother Ted, who I'm guardian for now, just got hearing aids. Now he's in his 50s, but they do age faster. So my brother Ted, who's about 60, if you met him, you'd probably guess he was 70 or 75. And that was the same. John died 2 years ago. He was 58, but if you looked at him, you would have said he was in the 70s, walking with a walker and stuff like that. So they do progress age-wise more. Weak bones, so that leads to the curvature of the spine. What else can we? Seizures. Typically really thin bone, lack of muscular strength. So all those are very typical. But I'm going to go back. If you haven't put into the natural history study, we would really welcome more cases in there, because that's been a really foundation for our researchers to move from to see what's going on in the humans and to do that. And another interesting aspect is, so John died 2 years ago, and we asked, he had actually put down on his driver's, it wasn't a driver's license, but it was because he couldn't drive. He had a permit, an identification card from the state. He'd put down that he'd be an organ donor. So right after he died, I was called and said, can we have his eyes? And I started thinking about that. So I called the researchers at Greenwood, and they actually said they wanted all of his internal organs because they wanted to be able to slice them apart and see how SRS has affected his organs. So my brother John actually contributed, after his death, all of his organs to them for research.
Yeah, that's an incredible gift to our community, because we only could learn about this disease to the extent that the patients participate. And I can't stress enough, like, if we are able to have an engaged patient community that is generous in supplying us with information, then we can take that information and we can curate it and we can share it appropriately on an anonymous basis, on a no-name, completely de-identified basis, and aggregate it so that the researchers understand what the disease is. That's half the battle, or maybe not half the battle, but that's without that, we can't make progress as quickly. One thing I would like to also add is that Tom Dolan, who was on the phone, aside from serving on our board of directors, is the CEO of Ruro, which is a software company that designed the software for the National Institutes of Health Undiagnosed Disease Program. And they were so generous in donating that software, a license to use that software, to the Snyder-Robinson Foundation, so that we could conduct a very high quality, very professional, just really, really detailed natural history study using the same software that's used by the NIH Undiagnosed Disease Program that we would not have been able to afford with our small community. But what that's led to is it's led to now, with the information that's been provided, and the software that's been provided, and the researchers who have become interested, we're now at this point where we've added to our board of directors, Jeff Lindeman, who is an attorney who has experience working in the pharmaceutical practice area, and he has rare disease experience. He's on the phone with us as well. But we added him because we're hoping that, soon we'll be able to bring one of these compounds to a preclinical phase and hopefully bring it to the FDA. And we've also added Dr. Robin Carlson, who is a regulatory expert who can help us shepherd these things through the regulatory process if we're successful in testing these in our animal models. We didn't mention the mouse models. We've also had Jackson Labs generously built us 2 different mouse models to test our compounds in. These are basically knockouts. They're mice with Snyder-Robinson syndrome. And we're going to get those mice phenotyped. And pretty soon we're going to be testing compounds in those mice. And if those tests are successful, we'll be bringing those compounds before the FDA, we hope, at some point soon.
Yeah, so that last point, I do want to jump in again, sorry, and then I want to get to any audience questions. So that last point, in various communications I've sent out, and that Cameron, and that has sent out Cameron Hancock, and then also on the Facebook page, there's some allusions to, testing that is needed, and that's what Michael just hit on. And so if you hear the foundation talking about important testing that is closer to realizing the mission than ever, something like that, it really is. That's any dollars that are donated to the foundation right now are going to be enabling that actual round of testing. So be a part of history, if you will. And then I want to go back to another thing that Mark said earlier, which is the natural history study. So I would say, now that we've broken into it, the purpose of this virtual gala is twofold. And we've now sort of hit on both of the subjects. One is the natural history study. And so Susan Scott, who joined us here, and others, welcome to interfacing with the Snyder-Robinson Foundation, and please, that anonymous contribution to the natural history study is what gives the foundation, the Snyder-Robinson Foundation, the fuel that it has progressed with incredible speed towards a probable possible treatment for the syndrome. So any questions, anyone who sees this recording, anyone on the call about the natural history study, any concerns about participating, please communicate with any of the staff at the foundation, and let's make those important steps towards a better data set. That data set is what's going to really help us win the day. The second purpose of the first ever Snyder-Robinson Foundation virtual gala is fundraising. As I just mentioned, we're looking for the dollars and cents that are needed to do this round of testing and several other objectives. To 2020, next year, could be a huge year for several reasons, some of which I legally can't speak about. But if there was ever a time that donation dollars can be put to direct and critical use, I would say that it is right now. So one of the things that I want to focus on at the end of the call is how you can do that, how you can move to support the foundation, support the kids and the few, the adults who are facing the syndrome as a part of their everyday life. Okay, but before we get to that, ways you can get involved, let me pause.
Foundation basically has almost no overhead at all. Everything that we bring in goes pretty much directly to research. We have a filing fee with the State Corporation Commission for $50, and we have about a $200 website cost every year. And aside from that, almost our overhead as a foundation is less than $300 a year at this point. So
that is remarkable. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. We have been so fortunate, so blessed, because the parents and the volunteers who have worked for us have brought the skill sets that we need. We have one of the dads is very good with IT and with all sorts of electronic communications and social media. So Chris Abbott has been our Chief Information Officer, and Frank Marchetti, who used to work on Wall Street, and now he helps run his family's restaurant up in Connecticut. They run several beautiful Italian restaurants up there. He's our Chief Financial Officer. Terry Turner, when she's not when she hasn't been taking care of her son. And previously she had two sons with Snyder-Robinson. Sadly, her younger boy passed away about this time last year from complications relating to Snyder-Robinson syndrome. But Terry, when she's not taking care of her son, is always working on the natural history study and reading medical articles, engaging with researchers. We've just got an incredible group of people who have been working on this and who have been helping us throughout the course of the last 5 years.
Any other questions? Okay. We're going to wrap up this call. I had booked an hour just in case the group had a lot of questions, but this was meant to be an intro for those who weren't familiar with the foundation, also to share sort of those up-to-the-minute sort of important topics like the pending testing at Jackson Labs. So we've kind of rounded that corner. I told you I want to talk to you about donations and how you can support the foundation in that way. I'm going to head in that direction, but very important, if you think of a question while I don't mind being interrupted, and certainly I'll pause at the end for any final questions. So if you've got anything to mention, don't hesitate to do that. Okay, so I'm going to back up here. The first and way that is always available for you to donate to Snyder-Robinson is snyderrobinson.org. and you saw that yellow Donate Now button. It's always there. If you go to any of the sub pages, you'll always be able to find how to donate. It's a simple form, and you'll be on your way in no time. One really important initiative that we're working on right now is a drive for membership. So that's another thing. A huge way you support the foundation is to become a member. We're not one. We don't even have a blast email service. You're not going to get junk mail or anything like that. But what you might get is a newsletter every once in a while that has really important information. Not everything makes it into the newsletter, only the best. And then really important for today. Now, today is December 3rd. That's Giving Tuesday for those who don't know. And so what that means is Facebook, thank you Facebook, is matching any donations that are made to Snyder-Robinson Foundation through the Facebook page. So you get on here, read news, take a look. I see we've got a few new likes today. People have been on our Facebook page, but donate today on December 3rd to have whatever it is. If it's $5, it'll be 10. If it's 50, it'll be 100, and that'll help us get towards that Jackson Labs testing. That's pretty much all I've got. That's the summary of the virtual gala. Funding.
Oh, good, great job posting that really wonderful visual image for Giving Tuesday on the Snyder-Robinson Foundation website. That is eye-catching.
Great. Yeah, and actually, to that point, thank you, Busy. Giving Tuesday is an international event. Actually, our largest donation of the day came from Austria, so that is a very true sort of image, the international basis to Giving Tuesday. It's a very exciting day for lots of organizations like Snyder-Robinson Foundation. So to recap, important milestone for testing we're trying to reach. Your dollars can help there. Important information gathering has been going on actually for years in a very professional manner. If you have Snyder-Robinson syndrome related data, the foundation is where it should go. I'll speak that very plainly. And then third is our membership drive. Members don't have to give us $1. They can learn about the foundation and talk about it. That is a precious, precious currency. Any final questions from the audience?
I have just a couple quick comments, if I could, Tom.
Great. Yeah, that's where I was going. Any final comments from our presenters?
Yes, I just wanted to say, be watching out in February. If you sign up as a member for free and get our newsletter, we hope to have some exciting news on developments coming out on or before Rare Disease Day, which is February 29th of 2020. And if you're available to ride with us in the $1 Million Bike Ride in Philadelphia, we would love to have you join us in Philadelphia on June 13th for the $1 Million Bike Ride. And we will be announcing dates for the Snyder-Robinson Joint Family and Medical Conference, which will happen in Grand Rapids in the last week of June. We are working out the final details and should have some dates out shortly. So please join and subscribe to our newsletter. There are no fees for membership, and we will keep you informed as to what's happening with the foundation. There's a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Michael. Mark, did you have any final comments, or you've said your piece?
I appreciate everyone participating in this virtual gala. Tom, I particularly appreciate you putting it on for us. The groundswell of all the different people pitching in has made the foundation really move forward. from Michael starting it to where we're going today and great things. So I greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right. Hey, thanks all the participants. This was a blast for me, and I will be distributing the recording just as soon as I possibly can. Thank you
Can I
all
ask
for.
a quick question? I'm sorry, it's Sue Scott. Can I ask one quick question?
Good. I was getting on a roll there. Go ahead.
The $1 million bike ride. I know my husband and I are both interested, and possibly one of my sons. So I don't know how to sign up for that.
I will send you an email with everything, and I will
Awesome.
post all of the information to our Snyder-Robinson family group on Facebook and to our website. But in the meantime, the other way you can access it is the registration will open up probably sometime in late January.
Okay.
If this year is the same as past years. And you can just type in $1 Million Bike Ride. It's the Orphan Disease Center. And incredible program that they run up there. And I look forward to seeing you in Philadelphia in June.
Definitely. We'll definitely be there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Any other questions? I'm on the way to ending the call, but I don't want to cut anyone off. Are there any final questions? All right. Well, everyone, thank you for attending Snyder-Robinson Foundation's first ever virtual gala. You all have a wonderful
Great
night.
work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.